You mentioned creating your own path. What's the path that you want to create for yourself?
I want to get a message out and help other people while also building myself up and getting what I want.
That was good. Yeah. Happiness is what happens.
And that stuck with me even through challenging times that followed uh, being in the army, being an educator. When people didn't believe in me, I still was able to believe in myself because
5 years ago, I discovered podcasts and it changed my life because I started to listen to all these podcasts and start to hear all of this free information and all these fly on the wall conversations with these amazing people. And it literally changed who I am as a person. So
find that, whatever it is, that truth that aligns with us, that makes us feel good, and use that to ground us.
Wow, because life is going to come faster to those people who do that to credit.
So I just want to say, whoever's listening, thank you.
But Carpe Diem is seize the day. It's about taking advantage of every day. You never know what the day is going to bring. You don't, but you have control over it.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Case by Casey podcast. I'm your host, Jethro Casey, and if you're a new listener, this podcast is all about uncovering the secrets to success, one case at a time. I'll be interviewing amazing guests to try and understand what it means to win and succeed in life. If you want to go faster, you go alone, but if you want to go further, we go together. So join me on trying to figure out the secrets to success. First of all, thank you for taking the time out of your day to come here and letting me interview you. I just want to introduce to the people how we met. So I actually met our guest here at a lip sync at St. John's University, and it was pretty amazing because I came in late and I see this guy, great energy, just controlling the whole room, and then at the end, long story short, we ended up dancing with a bunch of sorority girls. So it was a good time. It was very fun, and I just got to meet another confident person, which is pretty cool. So now let me introduce our guest. An accomplished host and entertainer, this person has touched upon almost every facet of the entertainment industry, from moderating roundtable discussions for Steve Madden to hosting bar mitzvahs with Cardi B. He has even appeared on The Today Show, Entertainment Tonight, HuffPost Live, and much more. He got his start as a contestant producer for the game show Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, but he came into his own when he became the warm-up guy for the Wendy Williams Show. He keeps his fans engaged with his blog, Kevin Writes, fit with his workouts, Kevin Trains, and visually stimulated with his life, the Kevin Thompson Experience. New York born and bred, Kevin's effervescence is undeniable. His enthusiasm for life and his craft are contagious, and so is his smile. He loves meeting new people because he'll never have the same conversation twice. Without further ado, I introduce Kevin Thompson. How are you, Kevin?
Oh, man, hey. I'm doing good, especially after hearing that.
Mm-hmm. The effervescence, I had to Google what that word meant because I was just I've never seen that word before. But my first question, I want to jump straight into the questions. So can you tell the listeners about your upbringing, all the way from childhood, high school, and into college?
Yeah, no, absolutely. First and foremost, Jeff, it was a pleasure being on this podcast. Thank you for asking me to be here. It's not every day that you'll find students that are, forthright and take the initiative. So it's really beautiful to see, especially from young Black male students, because I was that. So anyway, that being said, to answer your question, I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, raised by a bunch of wild Jamaicans. My family has a lot of personality, a lot. I'm actually one out of 9 children, and I have a twin sister. So I felt like I was born in a crowd. That being said, to entertain, keep the flow of things going, that's kind of what I always was, even before I had a microphone in my hand. And strangely enough, St. John's University took the place that a microphone was becoming an orientation leader, one of the student leaders in the summertime. Everyone was assigned different assignments, one that people doing tours of St. John, people doing the check-ins, some people involved with taking a form card picture, which is just an ID. Next to my name said Tent Entertainment, which is rather confusing. I was just like, what do you guys want me to do? What is Tent Entertainment? And all the heads, my bosses were telling me, well, you'll figure it out. And I said, but what do you want me to do? They go, you'll figure it out. And they kind of just laughed and walked away. And like they said, I figured it out. That's the first time I was like in front of a crowd of 500 people, about 350, 400 students, and another 150 adults. And I made it happen. I had to kill an hour from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. every Monday for 8 sessions in the summer. And I did. I did it. I'm a Brooklyn kid. I've always been pretty confident. And that was all. I'm closing my window because it was Brooklyn. We're always doing construction over there. Like my neighborhood is becoming so different. They're tearing down all these buildings, all these resident homes, all these buildings, which is super sad. But yeah, so, that was a little bit about my upbringing. So I was raised by a single mom, she was very influential. But I think the person that was even more influential was probably my father. I was kind of, his absence helped shape me, so that's a whole thing in itself.
So I saw that your father was a pastor, and you just mentioned how being with the single mom. How was that? I guess like kind of what's the biggest thing that your father taught you, and the biggest thing that your mom taught you?
The biggest thing my father taught me, well, I guess I will say this about him. Out of the 9 children he made, I'm like the spitting image of him. Although I didn't grow up in the same household as him, he's very charming and very confident. And I guess it's hereditary because I got all of that. So I guess I learned that from him just by genetics. Although he wasn't a great parent, I don't think everyone's meant to be parents, if I'm being honest. I think he's a rather extraordinary human being. He's very intelligent, wise beyond his years. Stellar vocabulary. The man could hold a conversation, because not only was he a pastor, his father's a pastor. He has a bunch of brothers. I want to say like 6 brothers. Most of them are pastors. So they all believe in the word. Me, not so much. I definitely grew up listening to the word, but I'm not really heavy. I wouldn't say I'm religious, but I am spiritual. I believe in energy. When it comes to my mom was probably one of the hardest working people I've seen. I grew up in a family full of women, nothing but just hardworking women. So not even just her, but all my aunts and female cousins around me. They kind of just taught me, not by telling me, but by their actions, that if you want to get something done, you got to do it yourself. And my mom always did things herself. The sad part of that is, though, that it taught me I don't really know how to ask for help. And I've always struggled with that. So I still struggle with that to this day. I tend to try to do everything on my own. And that's not how you make it far. Well, you can make it, but to make it even further, you kind of need a crew around you. So that's one thing I try to get better at as my career, further develops.
So something for me personally, I envision myself with a family. I know a lot of people kind of don't know what they want to do in life, and I'm kind of on that bordering line too. But one thing I do know is that I want a family. And you mentioned earlier that you have a son, Carter. Can you tell me like how fatherhood has kind of like changed your perspective on life and kind of like what you've learned kind of having to like raise a little you now?
Well, what's cool about being a father is especially being a Black father, it's almost like when people see you with your kid, they think it's like the best, dopest, single most experience in the world. They give backhanded compliments. And I know they don't mean to. And by they, I mean, it tends to be women when they're just kind of like almost shocked and impressed. They want to commend you for like being in this child's life. And I get where it's coming from. But at the same time, it's just kind of like, well, I kind of want to be in this child's life as my kid, I made him with someone who I love. Unfortunately, we're no longer together. His mother was my high school sweetheart. We were together for upwards of 14 years. It just didn't work out. But being a father to that little guy is just kind of taught me grace, which is something I'm still learning. I was never good at grace. I don't think I was taught grace. But being a father, I'm learning grace. And it's easy for me to do the right thing just because I just imagine, my son being there in the room with me. I'm like, would I want him seeing me do this? Or if I'm having like a bad day, all I think about is him as an adult. What would I want him to be doing this time? Because especially being an entrepreneur, you could have days when you're just not doing anything. And that's by choice. And then you have days when you're just so busy that you can't even respond to a text message, which is also by choice. So on those days that I'm not overwhelmed, but rather underwhelmed, I just think about my son and just think, what would I want him doing? Would I want him just here doing nothing, not accomplishing nothing, not pushing the needle a little bit further? Because it's all about making yourself better 1% every day or every week. Just because, within 6 months, a year, 2 years, that 1% grows incrementally, and you can see a beautiful change in yourself. Just me a year ago, not that I was in a bad place, but I just wasn't in a place that I'd brag about. And now a year later, I'm dating a wonderful young lady. We're going to go to Paris in a few weeks. And now I just got called with one of my clients about doing the New York City Marathon this November. I wasn't doing any of this a year ago, so it's just like what a year can make.
So I have a ton of questions, but because first of all, you're being very honest and transparent. I love that. So one thing, my brother just came back from Paris, so he said he absolutely loved it. A lot of walking. They said they don't really like Americans out there for some reason, which is weird. But my question to you is what are you kind of trying to instill into your son now, at this point? Because he's still very young. I think you said 8 years old. So what are you trying to instill into him?
Yeah, well, he just turned 9, so it's kind of scary that he's 9 years old. But what I'm trying to inculcate into this little guy is education. It's one of the values that my mom taught me, one of the biggest values that she taught me. I remember even graduating from St. John's. I wasn't of course I was happy. Who's not happy to graduate? But for me, it's just I had to graduate. This wasn't a choice. I had to go to school and finish. My mom pushed that in our brains when we were younger. One of the biggest disagreements that I've had with my son's mom was, I remember her saying when she was pregnant with him, oh, he doesn't have to go to college if he doesn't want to. And I just kind of, did one of those double takes, just who's not going to college? Ain't no child of mine not going to college. Mate, you could have a child with somebody else and y'all could go do whatever y'all want, be vagabonds together. But my child is getting an education too. Whether you don't go to college or traditional route, you have to learn something. You have to go to a trade school or something, because the only thing you can do in this world is better yourself. There's a lot of people out there just thinking things are going to be handed to them, or even worse, they're okay with the bare minimum and they live this mediocre life. And because I've lived a life the last 12 years hosting these big private events, these bar and bat mitzvahs for the 1%, a lot of my clients, most of them are making a lot of money, which is why these events cost $500,000, some cost $1 million. So I see that, and a lot of people that come from Brooklyn or come from certain socioeconomic backgrounds, they never see that. They're in their own bubble. But for me, I've been blessed to see the best of both worlds. I've been in a poverty-stricken home, and now I'm doing way better for myself. But I've also seen what it can be, where it can grow to. So I'm just kind of I want that. I've seen it. I've been to these mansions and these homes, and there's a lot of them. It's not one or two people. All of my clients have these sort of homes. I'm if they can do it, we can do it. But a lot of people are making these very common mistakes, silly things. Just the idea of just not going to college because you think it's an option. I'm okay, black man, black woman, that's not an option. Read just a book on slavery and see what these people have to go through just for you to be able to say some stupid comment like that. And I get it, because school isn't for everyone. But also being a millionaire isn't for everyone. That's what I see, So for me, when it comes to my son, education, because I want him to know that learning is a superpower. Not everyone has it, but you best believe that boy has it. He is a smart kid. And not only is he smart, his teacher just told me the other day when I went to go pick him up, and she didn't have to tell me this, but she goes, your son has grown so much in this last year. And not only is he just smart and his answers are better, he has a good soul. And that meant the world to me, because as a parent, you could always turn your kid around and get him to get better grades and study hard with him. But if he's not a good person inherently, adulthood is going to suck, But yeah, so education is probably the biggest thing among plenty other things.
So you mentioned that you have the opportunity to be in these mansions, being surrounded by millionaires. Could you tell the people, because this is something that I've kind of picked up on, and I think a lot of young people and just people in general miss out on, how important is it to network, and how did you network and find all these, how did you put yourself in those situations to where you could be hosting those events?
Well, I mean, honestly, I've just always been, I mean, you seen how I was when you met me at Lip Sync. I've always been that guy, like always. I don't care where I am, I'm Kevin Thompson. I am always my authentic self. I'm never acting, nothing. Just like I said, I'm transparent. I'm transparent with you. I'm transparent with everyone. Like if I don't like someone, they know. But I don't really dislike too many people. I mean, for me, it's just like, you know, somebody like anytime you meet somebody with a bad attitude, it's never on you. Like that person's having a bad day. There's something going wrong in that person's household. Something going wrong in that person's soul. It has nothing to do with you. You know, I have to remind myself when I'm driving and people are like beeping or going or ODing. I'm just kind of like, all right, it's not me. Something's going on with them. I'm not taking that too personally. But when it comes to networking, it's just about being a good person. Like I told somebody this. I learned this a long time ago, which is funny because I never really interviewed for jobs. That's not really my it's not my career how it's been. I've never really interviewed. It's like people know who I am, and it just kind of it's like this nice snowball that just keeps on getting bigger and bigger. So that being said, when I was interviewing when I was very young, I learned that if you want to get the job, you have to come across like the person someone would want to have a drink with, because no one wants to work with someone they can't even hang out with. You know, among, again, plenty of other things. Of course, it's being prepared for an interview, knowing the company that you're interviewing for. But if they can't actually see themselves being friends with you in real life, not that they are going to be friends with you, whether they give you a job or not, it already like counts you out of the interview, kind of counts you out of the running, because they want to hire people that they want to be around because they have to see this person every day. So when it comes to me, it's hosting parties. So having a personality like mine is already like half the battle, you know? Some clients told me they booked me off of just seeing a picture of mine, not even seeing a video, not even meeting me. They booked me just from a picture because it exudes from the picture. So you can see it. Like this guy is a good time. He wants to have fun. That's what he's there for. That's what he's going to do. And that's all we need done. And then what's the plus for me is that after they meet me, it's just kind of like, what else do you do? How can we help you? You know, like when you're on your way up and you're a good person, people want to help you. I learned a long time ago, talent is going to get you in the door, but how you stay in the room is your character. So work on developing your character. And again, it goes back to just keeping yourself educated and more valuable. The more valuable you are, the harder it's going to be for you to be replaced.
Wow, amazing. So another question I have is you mentioned that you might be hosting, or are you hosting the marathon, you said, the New York City Marathon, and you just finished running a half marathon. Can you just kind of tell me about, because I'm a runner myself, could you tell me about the kind of mental battle that you had to do while you were running? And I think it was like one of the hottest days for that specific day, and you were in like long sleeves, right?
Yeah, man. Oh, God. Well, when it comes to the New York City Marathon 2022, I might be participating in it. And by might, I mean, I'm going to do it. You know, my client, again, networking. My client hit me up because she has good friends. She has a good connection with another company that says we have more spots. Because when you run for a charity, you have to raise X amount of dollars. So that's what we'll be doing. It'll be a charity run. That being said, when it comes to the Brooklyn Half Marathon 2022, I don't know if you guys know this, but for those of you watching this podcast, just to remind you of the weather on May 21st, 2022, I believe that was the date. It was 95 degrees. 95 degrees, the hottest day of the year thus far. That being said, Kevin Thompson doesn't really look at the weather. Never really looked at the news, to be honest with you. When I was younger, in sixth grade, there was this disturbing school shooting, not to bring the temperature down, but it was a disturbing school shooting known as Columbine. And little Kevin watched the news just over and over, and that really messed with my head. So then I like vowed to never watch the news again. So since then, I've never really watched the news. I know what's going on in the world in terms of the big stories, but I don't really watch the news. I don't keep up with the weather. And being in New York, one thing you want to keep up with is the weather because it changes so rapidly. That being said, I completely missed the note on there being this hot day coming up. And I had started training. I started running in November of 2021. So from running from November 2021 all the way up to now, I've been running, in layers when I go outside. So I'm so used to just putting on layers. So going into the Brooklyn Half, I put on my long sleeve, my Brooklyn Half Marathon shirt, my tights, and my shorts. And when I got outside, it felt nice. It felt like doable, To be honest with you, I did the first 7.5 miles easy. Like it felt so easy. Most of the time when I run mentally, it's not the mileage that gets me down. That doesn't ever count me out. It's always the weather. Because my first half marathon was in January, the Fred Lebo half marathon in Central Park, and it was 18 degrees. So for me, all I was thinking about was how cold it was. But running back then in January, the more you run, the warmer your body gets. So after a while, it was nothing. I ran a 1:55. That was my first half marathon. Now realizing that was a super fast time. Apparently, the average man runs it in about 2 hours and 15 minutes. So running it in an hour and 55, I was kind of proud of myself. That being said, going into this Brooklyn half marathon on the hottest day of 2022 thus far, after 7.5 miles, my body was talking to me, and I'm very in tune with my body, and it was saying something's wrong. I felt like I was overheating. It was too hot. I couldn't take off anything because I'm running this race, and I had a hat on to add insult to injury. And I did something. I broke my cardinal rule. I stopped. I stopped at the 8 Mile water station. One great thing about the New York Roadrunner runs is that they have water stations, water, Gatorade, and those glue gels at every mile marker. I never stop. I just keep on going no matter how I feel. But I had to stop at mile 8, mile 9, 10, and 11 just to re-energize myself because I felt like there was something wrong with my body. And that being said, even though I stopped 4 times, I ended up running 10 minutes faster than my last half marathon. I did it at 1:45, which was insane. But sadly, somebody did die after running the marathon. They crossed the finish line and dropped dead. And then 16 others were hospitalized. So it was a hot day. I just wish more people were in tune with their body because I know if I wasn't, I would just think, oh, mind over matter. It's all about mental run. But no, I was running just like, I work out every day. I run every day. Something's wrong. Something is wrong. But I knew something was wrong and I stopped and I adjusted.
So that's amazing because something that I want to do in my personal life, I want to run every day. I just saw something on Instagram where this dude ran every day for like 4 years straight. And I'm just like how you mentioned before, like if he could do it, why can't I? But another question is for the people listening, can you explain what Carpe Diem means and why it's so important to you?
Oh man, so that's actually a saying I say to my son every morning when I drop him off to school, every single morning. He almost like looks at me and rolls his eyes now. But Carpe Diem is seize the day. You know, it's about taking advantage of every day. You never know what the day is going to bring. You don't, but you have control over it. You know, you set goals and it can be small goals. There's this one motivational speaker that the way he lives his day, he breaks it up into like quadrants of 6 hours. So for him, he wakes up at 6 a.m. to 12. So he has things he wants to accomplish from then. And then it's from 12 to 6. He has things he wants to accomplish then. And then it's from 6 to 12 again. So that's how his whole thing goes. So in his mind, 1 day is actually 3 days for him. So I tell my son to seize the day, you know, just like I tell college students when you're in college, don't just go to college, take advantage of all the resources. Like, I don't care what school you go to, there's so many resources there. You know, sometimes they're begging for students to do things because they have all these things that are available, but no one's looking at it. You know, everyone thinks if I just go to class and get good grades and get a, good GPA, things are going to be all good. No, you have to do the extra credit. You got to step out because life is going to come faster to those people who do the extra credit. You know, if you're doing the bare minimum, it's going to reflect in your paycheck. It's going to reflect in the household you live in. It's going to reflect in how you raise your children. It's just going to trickle down into everything that you do. So I think that runner you were talking about, his name is Hella, which is great that his name is Hella. I want to say he's African. If he's not, he's really dark. But he's been running every day. I think this year made 5 years, running every day, which is nuts. For me, that was never my plan to run every day. I just run just because we're all going through stuff. Kendrick Lamar just dropped his album. That's pretty much what it's all about. We're all going through something. So for me, the stuff that I'm going through is pretty heavy. So a lot of times for me to work through it, I used to go to therapy pretty often, but now I just run in the morning. I run and let all those thoughts, all those negative, disgusting, disturbing thoughts just linger through my mind and I work through them. And then I, going about my day. That's how I do it. It feels good.
Yeah, that's exactly why I run too. I think running for me is like a form of meditation. I haven't had the chance to go to therapy, but I'm definitely will in the future. But something that's I think people kind of miss out on is like how important like your mental health is. And for me, like I meditate and I also run, but like how you were saying, running's just a way to kind of get away from my thoughts and kind of run into them and run away from them. I remember you saying that I think it was something along the lines of like you run away to kind of increase the distance between I don't know exactly what it was, but it was like you run away to like increase the distance from other people or like from your past.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There are people who say that, oh man, we're just like you. I'm just like you. I know someone that's just like you. I'm just like, there's no one like me. I'm me, and that's not like even a slight against whoever they're talking about, whether it be themselves or their friends. But I'm just like, I'm not, there's no one like me. There's no one like you, Jethro. There's no one like anyone. You could be kind of similar, You could probably have the same sense of humor, the same height, you run the same time as me, but you're not like me. Even though you run that race in the same time as me, you got there differently than I did, you know? So what I said was the reason why I run every day is to create literal distance between myself and people who think they're like me. You know, I was definitely in my bag that day.
So I found this quote that was pretty cool, and I want to know your thoughts on it. It goes, "I was born to make the world smile." What does that mean to you?
Oh yeah, man, that's on my website. Hey Kev, yeah. So you know, everyone has a purpose, and they feel like, you know, what am I here for? And I've just noticed since I was a kid, like even it started with the women in my family. I told you, it's nothing but women in my family, and I see it with my son, where he's just making jokes, and he's surrounded by his mom and his grandmother, and they're just that's his first audience, you know, and they're just laughing, and I could see him like his mind going for the next joke, going for the next laugh, and that's exactly who I was, but on a bigger scale. I had a lot more family when I was that young, and you know, I remember my little sister being sad when I got first noticed by BET. I left the Wendy Williams show on a Monday. I left on a Monday, and by Wednesday, BET picked me up because they wanted me to host 106 in Park. I'm dating myself here. 106 in Park, what's that? And being at 106 in Park, my little sister was kind of scared because she was kind of like, you know, she felt like they had me. Like I was in this bubble where my family just knew how great I was. But now I was being exposed to the world, being on national television. And she's, I can't remember the exact quote that she said to me, but she was just like, you know, you always entertained us, but now you can be entertaining the world. And she was kind of like sad by it, but still proud at the same time because she felt like she was losing her big brother. But that's what it was. Like, I'm supposed to do this. You know, I'm not gonna lie to you. I didn't want to do it. I never wanted to be famous. I remember meeting some client like years ago. This was at a birthday party for the guy who owns KFC. It was a costume party. He was dressed in drag. It was crazy. But I was on a table with a bunch of, you know, wealthy people. And then they were talking about just things that they do. And one of them said, you know, we're the rich and the famous. And then she just kind of laughed. She goes, well, we're not famous, but we sure are rich. And she like threw her head back and did like that rich woman laugh. And I'm looking at it and I was just, you know, this is young Kevin. It's like 22-year-old Kevin. And I was just like, that's what I want to be. You know, I don't want to be famous because famous people have so many problems. Not that rich people don't, but I'm from New York. I want to be able to take the train, you know, without a problem, even though I drive everywhere now. But I remember when I was started to get popular doing the Wendy Williams show, and I was on the train and some people recognized me. And keep in mind, when I was working at the Wendy Williams show, I was 21 years old. So like I'm fresh out of college, still drinking all the time and partying. So I'm on a train just like, you know, hanging over, just, I had a couple of drinks at Blockheads, RIP to Blockheads. They didn't make it through COVID. But I don't want to be recognized on the train when I'm drunk. Like, what? Leave me alone. And I see my clients, you know, after they throw this big, huge, very expensive party, they walk out in the street and no one knows who these people are. You know, they have no idea who these people are, how much they control. None of them are workers. They all are owners. They all own whatever company they have, you know, all owners, whether they own a business, they're high profile lawyers, they're investment bankers, or they're in the medical field, they're doctors. That's what all my clients, like across the board. Sure, some may have other things that they do, but for the most part, those are like the top professions for my clients. So yeah, I forgot the question, but yeah.
That was great. So you mentioned purpose, and something that's super important to, I think, people in general, that's something that people need, is purpose in life, something that they could chase after. And for me, and I know many young adults and even older people struggle with kind of knowing like what they should be doing in life. And for someone like you who kind of seems like they knew they were here to make people smile, could you give any advice to like how people can, I guess, help find them purpose within themselves?
You know, a lot of the times you have to think about, and this sucks because a lot of people forget their childhood, but you have to go back to your childhood. Go back to that thing that you did for free. Like for me, I loved writing as a kid. I was always writing all the time. And that's what I'm actually doing right now. I'm working on my first book because that's what I feel like I was supposed to be doing. As much as I love entertaining and this and that came natural, writing always came natural to me too, which is why I could host events because I write so much. So it's almost like I have, you know, a script in my head already. You know, when I went to St. John's, I majored in communications, but I minored in creative writing. What I wanted to do was write for television. And coming out of St. John's, I was a little confused. I actually almost joined the armed forces, I had everything signed up. I had a recruiter and everything. And my mom ripped up all my paperwork. She ripped up all my paperwork and drove me to Walmart and said, get a job. I didn't feel like working at Walmart. I just got my bachelor's from St. John's. So what I ended up doing, because I'm one that I don't like being idle. I don't do well with idle time. So after I graduated from St. John's, I learned how to drive. And within that month of me learning how to drive, I was also on this website called entertainmentcareers.net, which is like monsters.com, but for entertainment people. I think it's like $5 a month to be on there. I think it's $10 now, maybe. So the day of my road test, I had a road test in the morning, then I had an interview with Who Wants to Be a Millionaire in the afternoon. So I ended up getting my driver's license in the morning and getting that job at Who Wants to Be a Millionaire later on that day. So it was a big day for Kev. But I'm happy that my mom stuck to my guns. And, she knew that there was more out there for me. Every time I would interview, when I did interview for like jobs that weren't entertainment, I would always lose the job because the person interviewing me, seeing like who I am and what I've done, they're like, I feel like we'd be holding you back from who you're supposed to be, which is super interesting. So a lot of those jobs, at least a lot of those people I would give in those interviews for those jobs helped me out by rejecting me. And they purposely did it. They said, no, we feel like we're stopping you from being who you're supposed to be.
So you mentioned that you feel like you were born to write and that you were supposed to be a writer, but you kind of went the entertainment route. You mentioned that you also write poems and that you journal. Could you tell me why you journal and kind of like what you get out of journaling? And would you recommend that if other people should pick that up as well?
Oh, definitely. I forced my son to journal. He hates it, but it's like beautiful seeing what like little Carter wrote like 2 years ago. But journaling, they say if you want to learn about others, read a book. If you want to learn about life, read a book. But if you want to learn about yourself, write. Because when you write about your days, or you could go back to it and see exactly the emotions that you were going through, because then you can control it better. Because emotions are all natural. But what's sad about emotions is that they don't care how natural it is. If you overreact and get upset and do something in that time, and it causes you to get arrested or something even worse, something detrimental. Now that one moment that you overreact is going to follow you for the rest of your life. It might affect the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, a lifetime. Bruce Lee said it best. He said, learn how to control your emotions or your enemies will use them against you. So when you journal, you learn so much about yourself and you learn what triggers you. Whether you write just a line about what happened, how your day was, or you're going in writing paragraphs. And that's the only thing I struggle with, because I always want to just write like a line, but then I end up just like going deep and just writing so much. But I love writing. I've always loved it. It's a release for me. So that's why I journal. I definitely recommend it to whoever wants to learn about themselves.
So now working on your first book, what are kind of the unique challenges you face writing your own book compared to how you do using a microphone? Rather than speaking it, now you have to write it. So like, what are the different challenges you face?
Microphone is easy. It just, as natural as that comes, because the thing is, it's immediate. Writing a book isn't immediate. You have these thoughts, you want to flesh it out nicely, but you have to carve out that time. Just like I carve out that time to run, you have to carve out that time to sit down and really write something that you think is going to be worth reading. There's a quote that I read a long time ago that said, write the book that you want to read. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm writing a book that I would want to read. This book is it's really for men. It's for men and women, but it's really for men. So it's a cautionary tale. It's about something that unfortunately happened to the main character, and it just changed this person. And it happens a lot to people, where you meet somebody in life that brings out a nasty side of you, a side that you didn't know existed. So that's what the book is really about.
So for the people who may be in a situation where they are in that relationship with that person who brings out the worst in them, or maybe not the best version of themselves, what advice would you give that person?
Leave. Because the thing about it, a lot of people in life love to play games. It's a sign of immaturity. But the thing about it is that if you stop playing, the game is over. So leave.
So appreciation is something that everyone yearns for. How did it feel when you were told you're the best warm-up guy in the business by Wendy Williams?
Let me tell you right now, that was a hard day. I deserved that. Paris Hilton came 2 hours late because she wanted to go shopping because she had an appearance on The Late Show later on after her Wendy appearance. I had to entertain that crowd. I had already entertained for an hour, for 2 more additional hours. So I was on my way out, walking out, and Wendy was walking out, and we kind of walked out at the same time. And as she was getting in her car, she saw me, and she just stopped, and she turns, and then she says that, to me, and I just kind of smiled. It made me feel good, and then I went and got drunk right afterwards. Which I don't even drink like that anymore, unfortunately. Well, fortunately, but yeah, it made me feel good. It made me feel proud because, you know, like you have to love what you do to pull off something like that.
So we only have about like 3 more minutes here, and these are some questions that I always ask people, or that I'm starting to ask people to kind of understand what it means to be successful, because this podcast is all about uncovering the secrets to success. See if there's like a formula, which I do believe there is. So my first question to you is, let's say you have the world's attention and are able to tell people 2 things. What would be your advice?
My advice, 2 things. All right. 1, exercise. Exercise. 2, continue developing you. Because there are going to be distractions in the world. You have to continue to develop you. Because like I said before, a lot of people, you know, focus on their jobs and what their jobs could get them. You got to focus on your job and what it's making you become. Because that's all it is. What are you becoming? To make yourself valuable, but also exercise, because everybody wants to live long, but no one's preparing for it. You know, you got these old people that are, sure, you made it to 80, but you can't even walk. You can't even do this. You can't do that. You're limited. And I get it that you're old, but could have been a different life if you lived your first, 50, 60 years differently. So exercise and continue working on yourself, making yourself valuable.
And what's your definition of success?
Well, I mean, that could be defined in so many different ways, right? Like for me, my definition of success, like if you ask 22-year-old Kevin, Wendy Williams saying you're the best warm guy in the business, that would have been it at the time. So it's constantly changing. Like right now, I remember I had a week where I felt like running 10 miles every day just to see if I could do it. Just because 10 miles was my number. That was the highest I had ever run. But then I did it 5 times in a row. I was just like, oh, that's not so hard, So I felt successful that week. Even me speaking to you now and saying some of the things that have been in my brain rattled throughout it, and I'm saying it in a very well thought out manner, that feels successful to me. So success is ever changing, and that's what people should know. They should know that once you win that race and you get that medal, cool. When's the next one? Keep on looking for the next thing. Because if you stop looking at that and you just celebrating this one thing you did this one time, now you're a has-been. You have to keep on pushing the envelope, as they say.
So lastly, Kev, where can people find you?
Oh, you can find me on my Instagram, which is @HeyKev, Kev with 3 B's. And you can keep up with me also on my website, which goes by the same name, heykev.com, which I'm super proud of.
All right. Thank you so much.
Jeff, this was amazing.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Case by Case. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure to drop a like, follow, or rate on whatever platform you're listening on. Proper preparation prevents poor performance. So if you want to help others prepare for the path to success, don't forget to share this episode on social media so we can reach success together.